Hey everyone, my name's Ant, and this is the premiere episode of the China Files. In the beginning, basically, for those who don't know, those who are new to this podcast, I spent over a decade living in China. It originally started off as a 1 year teaching trip / sabbatical to get away from my very stressful existence in Canada, and turned into much, much more. At this time in history, I can't recall there ever being more anti-China propaganda and information on the internet, in the news, in the mouths of politicians. It's absolutely insane. And whereas there's truth behind everything, I wanted to kind of take a look at the other side of China, the China that I experienced through the time that I spent there with myself and my family. So that's what this podcast is all about, is basically taking a look at the other side of China, not just what the news and the politicians are saying. This view that we're looking at right now, another thing I'll want to tell you about this podcast is, even though it is a podcast, I am doing a video series as well on YouTube, which will show the pictures that I'm actually talking about. I took thousands, if not tens of thousands of photos during my time in China, and I've never really had anybody to share them with, so I've been digging through them and kind of coming through with a chronology of my time in China. So I'm hoping that these videos are going to help people who either want to go teach in China, want to go travel and visit in China on a more long-term basis than just short-term, or those that actually plan on immigrating to China and seeing what life is actually like over there. It is substantially different than it is here, but it is also substantially different from what people believe it is there. It's crazy. This, for example, is the view from my balcony when I lived in an amazing 25th floor apartment with nothing else in front of me, which is really rare. So I had this amazing view of what you can see there is the Shenzhen skyline and the equivalent of the Central Park, actually called Central Park. But an amazing place, was the best place I ever lived in my life. I'll tell you more about that later on as we get more into it. But the key point is that all of these photos are mine. All the photos and videos that you watch in this series are going to be taken directly by me. And as the chronology starts at the beginning, you're going to see that the video and photo quality is not fantastic, which is to be expected. But as the videos progress, you'll see more progression towards that. So anyway, without further ado, let's move on. So this is where I come from. I come from a small, well, not small, but a mid-sized capital city of Alberta, Canada. This is the whole city at about the time that I left. Not a building over 30 stories, and even those very few and far between. A decent enough place to grow up, and I did all right for myself. I came from very humble and difficult beginnings, but I actually did become a rather successful computer technician for one of the largest computer companies in the world. And whereas I absolutely loved that job, I rose very quickly in the ranks and started traveling all over the province, which was amazing. I got to take amazing pictures and see amazing things, which started in me the travel bug. I literally would go to towns with more dogs than people to fix their servers. And you've never seen so much, what's a server? I'm not even kidding you. So that was fun. I was young. I was having a good time. But as time progressed, I started noticing my health failing, to the point at 33 years old, I had a heart attack. My doctor told me at that point that if I wanted to see 40, I was going to have to dramatically change my life. The long hours of driving, the really, really poor food choices, the lack of exercise, and the incredibly stressful job was a recipe for disaster. So I started thinking about what I wanted to do, and actually recalled my very first trip anywhere ever to Hawaii. Now, the trip itself was amazing, seeing the Hawaiian people and the islands of Hawaii. The company I went with was not fantastic, but I learned a lot about traveling and about seeing things that are different than what's outside your back door. Whereas I'd been traveling all over Alberta, literally every single town, I wasn't seeing things that changed my outlook, that changed my life, and this kind of did. So this was when I was 32 years old. And then, of course, after the holiday, I went back to work and had my heart attack and then took a leave of absence. But this trip to Hawaii, even though it was only for 2 weeks, never left my mind. And I started thinking while I was on my leave, what can I do? I need to do something. I want to see things like this. And this. And this. I want to see real life China. And I want to see modern, cool, interesting China. I've always wanted to go to China ever since I was a child, ever since I was a kid. I want to see elaborate meals of foods that I cannot explain, that I've never seen before. And I want to eat them myself. So during that time period that I was not working, it was the first time I'd actually had a break. Almost literally the first time I'd had a weekend to myself in months and months and months. I started thinking more about how I could achieve this, how I could go travel and see the world and see all these interesting things. And I came across something in the back of a free publication, a newspaper that's given out on the street corners in little boxes in pretty much every major town. And what you're seeing here is a building in the downtown artsy neighborhood right here of my hometown. And there used to be a school upstairs called Global TESOL. And Global TESOL still exists, and they still help people to achieve their dreams. But for the mere cost of $1,000, which at that time I could afford, you could take a course and get certified, and they guaranteed that you would get a job. I wasn't so much worried about the guarantee. I was very interested in going overseas. So on one of my doctor's visits, I did talk to him and say, so you said I have to change dramatically, otherwise I won't hit 40. What do you think about me going over to China and teaching for a year? Because I'd always wanted to go to China. China had always been my passion. He himself, Chinese, looked at me and said that would be the best thing he ever did. Lo and behold, it was. That made my decision. I marched on into the class, or into the office. I paid my $1,000. I took a 1-week class with about 25 other people. We all passed, and we're all gung-ho, ready to go, anxious young teachers. 3 of us ever got on a plane. This is very common when it comes to ESL teachers, and I'll tell you more about it in upcoming videos, podcasts. But people tend to think grandiose things, but then when they realize this isn't a 2-week vacation to Mazatlan, I have car payments, I have a boyfriend, girlfriend, I have responsibilities, I'd have to leave my job, I'd have to find a new job when I came back, etc., etc. A lot of people, even though they've already paid that non-refundable $1,000, literally never get on the plane. I've seen research on this. I've talked to people at different training centers, and I've literally met thousands of English teachers from around the world. And it's just very, very uncommon for someone to get onto the actual plane. One of the bigger problems that they never tell you about in the schools is they'll glamorize places like France and Italy and Greece, Spain. I'm telling you right now, people, that unless you are an English professor with 40 years experience, those places aren't going to touch you because they don't need English teachers. They are part of the EU, and English people from England can travel to those places and teach with no visas, with no additional expenses. To them, it's just a job in Italy. Right? So that makes it incredibly hard for people over here to get jobs over there. We usually get relegated to places like, if we're experienced and have degrees and don't mind living in a military compound, the Middle East, where you make a ton of money, or Asia, which has always been a lot more forgiving. when it comes to requirements and degrees. Basically, in China, Indonesia, and the Philippines, if you are a native English speaker, that's good enough. If you have an English degree in anything, then you can work in any of those 3 countries, or Japan or Korea. That is pretty much the reality of it. Thailand, other small countries in that region, all are quite strict about foreigners coming in, so it's much more difficult, and as such, a lot of people not getting the romantic choices they want don't. So yeah, myself and 2 others actually made it overseas. Those 2 lasted about 2 weeks, and that's normal as well, because it is a dramatically different lifestyle. So I went in, I paid my $1,000, and I came out with this redacted to protect the names of the innocent. There's not really any information on here anyway. As you can see, I got this back in 2003, and within a week I'd found a contract. Very, very luckily, I found a contract with an amazing company, which I still recommend to teachers to this day. But yeah, this piece of paper got me my job, got me my first contract, and boom, it was on the road. So this was me in the airport, my very first time traveling alone, and definitely this far overseas, going into a country where I didn't understand the language and knew nobody. After 24 plus hours, due to my very, very poor flight planning, I did the milk run from Edmonton to Vancouver, Edmonton to Vancouver, Vancouver to Los Angeles, Los Angeles to Hong Kong, Hong Kong to Taiwan, Taiwan, and then to Hong Kong, and then to Guilin. All told, it was 34 hours, and I do not sleep on any manner of transportation, planes, trains, or automobiles. So I literally was awake for 34 hours. But by the time I got to Taiwan, it had only been 24. So when I was greeted by the cup man here, or the teapot man here, I almost said hello to him. I'm not going to lie. I was really amazed at the first time ever I'd seen long mobile walkways to help people with their luggage, and all these wild advertisements for things that I had no idea what they were. English radio for Taiwan. Yes, look at that. Welcome home. Wow. This isn't going to be so hard at all. Boo. Get through customs, not much of a line, thinking, wow, I got so lucky. And then realized that on the other side of customs, there's nothing. There's no shopping, there's no restaurants, there's no water fountains. So I was stuck without food and water. I had a view of the parking lot, as you can see here. The multiples and multiples of taxis. There's 4 rows here that you can see, and they probably extend for blocks and blocks in either direction. Lots of taxis. And the very, very cool building I was in, it was screaming hot. It would have been an amazing time to go walk outside and just smell and see the world, but unfortunately, being the uneducated traveler I was, I went through customs, so I ended up sitting on the side saying, "Warning, drug trafficking is punishable by death in the ROC." Yay. Now, realistically, that did not scare me then, nor does it scare me now. I'm not a drug dealer, so I don't care. There are a few interesting little things like this mailbox to look at. But for the most part, I was incredibly tired. This had been the longest trip I'd ever taken, and the longest I'd ever been awake without even having a nap. I was ready to die. I had all my crap with me, all my luggage, everything. So I was hauling around a giant bag on top of everything that I was carrying on my body. And I just kind of plunked down in a corner, as close to the air conditioning as I could. And I think I might have dozed off there for a bit. I had my backpack, my ukulele. And I had another bag. I do not see my big suitcase. However, I suspect that my camera is sitting on the big suitcase with the timer is how I got this picture. So yeah, that was my 34-hour journey to China. It was really, really crazy after that. I'll try to find you some pictures of my first experiences, my first day. But yeah, it wasn't what I expected, and I had no idea what I was up against. But that was the reason I was there. So I'm going to keep these little podcasts to 15 minutes apiece. So I'm going to leave you with that this time, and we'll see you in the next episode.